Detrick Franklin is dedicated to cultivating awareness while coaching others to evolve into their greatness. He is an experienced consultant with 30 plus years of challenging the status quo and bringing synergy to any space he occupies. Being passionate about improving the process, he is recognized as a charismatic change agent and workplace influencer. Detrick holds a dual MBA in human resources management and marketing. His other educational endeavors include 3 years of industrial engineering coursework and a PhD coursework in global leadership. So, Detrick, welcome to today's uh, discussion, and I am truly looking forward to hearing what you have to say. I'm turning the
Thank,
floor over to you right now.
thank you, Karlene, and thank you everybody for coming today. 2020 was the most eventful year with COVID-19, the deaths of George Floyd, Ahmaud, Breonna. Then we had the growth of the Black Lives Matters movement worldwide. Momentum, it picked up
Mhm.
around the globe. We seen people of all colors come together and chant "I can't breathe," um, "Get off my neck," "Black Lives Matter." And so that was really encouraging, um, because oftentimes we feel like that we are in the struggle alone, that it's us against the powers that be. So I am very grateful, to be here in 2021. And then in the United States, 2021 started off with a bang on January 6th with the uh, hyper patriots or terrorists, however you like to categorize the people that stormed the Capitol building. It was pretty amazing and crazy, and I think that the whole world just kind of watched in shock and disbelief, particularly from the Black community. We've seen that and realized that the hurtful part of it was that these people attacked the police, people got killed, and at 6 o'clock, they ushered all of these protesters out and allowed them to go home. Very few people were arrested, and it's just like, wow, this was far from um, a peaceful demonstration or protest. And they went to challenge a vote on an election. And when we gathered to protest and challenge police brutality, asked to stop being killed in the streets, just stop killing us, then we were beaten, arrested, and labeled as Black identity extremists. So it was really kind of hurtful to see the hypocrisy of it. But the plus side of that, I'm a opportunist, and that is the opportunities you would think of standard is, oh, I'm seizing an opportunity to take advantage of. I see opportunity and find opportunity when confronted with obstacles. So that's why I am passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I didn't realize it till probably this last 7, 8 months that it was my life's work. Everything up to this point that I have done has prepared me for this. I was been labeled as a rebel rouser when all I did was mind my business at work, and people would come to me and ask my opinion because they know that I'm gonna stand up for what's right, and I'm gonna stand up for the people that are too afraid to speak. And we got to stop being afraid. So I was very honored when Karlene invited me to speak on this and told me what the topic was: shifting the narrative for sustainable change in the Black community. And I was thinking, like, she already know that's what I'm on, and that's where we need to be. Uh, as a practitioner in the DEI movement, it has been, to me personally, I feel like it's been very slow to get people to change as far as the executives, the powers that be, management, decision makers. And I understand, why would you want to change a system or change something that you are benefiting from or that gives you, I'm not going to use the word privilege. We're going to speak truth here, that gives you advantage in life against everybody else on the planet that doesn't look like you. So I definitely understand the resistance in that. In doing this, oftentimes you encounter the situation where you got the management or the basically the client trying to dictate, well, you can say this or you can't say this, or you can only say this. So they want to really, it's all window dressings. They want to act like that they're doing something, but then they don't want to get too deep in it. And then what a lot of people don't know is that when you do start doing assessments and helping these clients, and it often comes out that, well, the way that they have been conducting themselves and just what's built into their processes, it kind of puts them in a liable situation. It becomes a liability for them to change, because then some people might wake up and realize, well, okay, now that it's going to be more diverse and more equitable, this that you did really violated these laws, and this way that you were operating, we got a lawsuit or we got a class action lawsuit. So it's really sad that those are some of the barriers that are impeding the change that needs to take place, but that has nothing to do with the Black community. So in the United States, and I really believe globally, because this is why everybody around the world came together with the George Floyd when the protest started, is because what's happening to people of color in the United States is happening to people of color in Canada, people of color in Britain, people of color in Australia, globally. People of color are experiencing the same situation and scenario. So yeah, shifting the narrative, it's time for that. I mean, we can wait as we wait for our less melanated brothers and sisters to have a change of heart and change of mindset about this. We can work on us. We can focus on us, and that's where I would like to shift the narrative to, is the Black community, the Black body of people on the planet, the people of color on the planet. Instead of waiting for your employer or waiting for your community judges, legislators, instead of begging and waiting for somebody to change, let's us become the change that we want to see.
Mm-hmm.
Let us become the change that we want to be. We become the change. So that's why I am offering 7 keys to hacking white supremacy, because more often than not, as a person of color, you are going to be confronted with it. You are going to be in a situation with it. And for way too long, we have been going along to get along. None of these hacks involve picking up an assault rifle and shooting anybody, revolting against the government, or none of that. It's just some powerful, life-changing statements that I have encountered over the last few years, particularly the last 4 years, that have really caused a shift in me. And that I have seen substantial growth, and just have allowed me to navigate when I'm confronted with these situations, because it's ugly. And the old me was, if I heard somebody that was not of color using the N word, I instantly wanted to check them. And then if the conversation went too long, I might be prepared to get combative about it. That don't bother me no more, because I know what it means. And a lot of times in those confrontations, you are told by the less melanated person that, oh, well, I'm probably blacker than you. Okay, that's insulting, but I got you. So at the end of the day, it's a matter of ignorance, and we have to stop being ignorant. I mean, that's why they use it. We use it with each other. We got to stop that, because it displays ignorance, and then it allows and facilitates for other people that witness that aren't us to feel that they have a right to do the same thing. So, and one of the things sustainable that we can do for the Black community that needs to change is we need to come together and unite, like the rest of the communities that we see and we talk about. We talk about the Asian communities and how they got all these stores popping up. We talk about the Middle Easterners, and they have all the gas station. And I'm not trying to be stereotypical or anything. I'm just, these conversations that I hear, this is conversations that I've had. We talk about everybody, and as a Black community get upset or irritated that all these people come from these different countries, and then they, you know, next thing you know, they got businesses, they buying houses, they done moved their whole family over, they took over entire neighborhoods, and we are here. We can do that. We have to unite. That's really the solution for our sustainability, is we have to unite and come together. We have to stop waiting for and begging somebody to do for us that we can do for ourselves. Um, so one of the fixes, and I'm gonna share the keys to the hack at the end. But I just kind of want to shift everybody and pivot everybody to a different perspective and look at what's going on in the United States as a failed toxic relationship. If we go into counseling, uh, counselor would tell the black person or black people in a relationship and the white people in a relationship that, you know, this is toxic, that, you know, the domestic violence, the mental abuse, the physical abuse, verbal abuse, the controlling, the control with money, using money as a means, finances to control the relationship. It's a relationship. We are cohabitating. We not going nowhere. We not going back to Africa. Everybody over here didn't come from Africa. It was people of color all over the planet. The deeper they dig, the darker it gets. All the artifacts they pull up, the deeper they dig, the darker they get. They look just like us. So, you know, we're going to speak and operate in truth and being truthful instead of looking at it as a situation of, oh, well, you know, we got to protest. Protesting is cool, you know, vent, but we, and going within, we got to come together. We aren't individuals. The COVID has got everybody separated. We are one body. We are one global community. We are not the minority. We are the majority on the planet. Period. We're going to speak facts. I didn't come with a PowerPoint because I don't want that distracting anybody. And I'm not going to throw out a bunch of statistics because you can look that up. You can Google it. All the statistics do is just infuriate us, get us upset, and then we daze off and get unfocused on what's going on. And that's a lot of how and why we are where we're at, because we are so unfocused. Now is a great time with everybody sitting at home that you can meditate, you can go within. They made it where we can't go to church and pray together. Is that a coincidence? I mean, when we came over to the United States, was brought from Africa, they separated us and cut us off from our religion so that we couldn't pray. And then they gave us the religion to utilize. Let's utilize the tools that they use to get us in this condition and get ourselves out. So it seems like once we, because the word of God is the word of God, and that's key number one, is God is real. They take God out of everything so that you forget that or don't realize that, but God is real. And that's the first key to hacking white supremacy, is you need to know that. And there's a lot of people that I meet, particularly of color, that are atheists or don't believe in God. It's like God woke you up. He is in everything. Thank you, Jesus. You know, not to offend anybody that's Jewish or Muslim, I feel like this, the whole institution of religion, because we are spiritual beings, that's what the melanin does. That's the superpower. That's the magic. It connects us to the source, which is God is the source. The creator is the source. And particularly in this day and age with technology and everything going on, we kind of steered away from that and got away from that. So back to what I was saying about toxic relationship, this is kind of how we need to approach it and look at it, at what's going on. And we need to come together. It's enough intelligent people. It's enough educated people of color. It is enough successful people of color that we can each one teach one, reach back. You know, the children are the future. And if the example that we are setting, being disrespectful, not respecting ourselves, presenting ourselves, and I mean, why would you want to imitate or try to act like the people or the they that going along to get along don't do nothing but put you at the end of the line for when it's your time? It just stalls off the inevitable. And right now, change is coming. That is inevitable. George Floyd, COVID, change is coming. Growth is optional. So I will hope I can share something so that people can grow. Plant a seed that even if not today, maybe in a few days or a week, you'll be like, I dig what you're saying. You know, I feel that, you know. So that's why I shifted to a relationship. What we dealing with is white supremacy. Is like a bad toxic relationship. And what would you advise your friend or your loved one if they was in a toxic relationship where they was being abused? You know, you can't change the person or the narcissist that is in a relationship with you, but what you can do is change yourself. So goes back to what I said about us becoming the change that we want to see. It's sustainable. Once you change yourself, stand up, wake up. You know, we are in a woke movement. Everybody's awake. Awake to what? I haven't heard anything that people have said they're awake to. The obvious that, oh, well, discrimination and inequality is taking place. We don't have a seat at the table. That's some Captain Obvious stuff. What are we awake to? What are we awake to? What has anybody said? I haven't heard anybody say anything that let me know that they was really awake and aware of what's really going on. A whole lot of this stuff is a distraction. The day that January 6th, when all that stuff happened at the Capitol, major distraction. What else was going on? Oh, well, the Department of Justice, they was like, well, we done investigating the Tamir Rice, 12-year-old young man that got killed with a toy gun in Ohio. They not doing nothing about that. It was another verdict. Oh, was it the Breonna Taylor? However it goes, it was just kind of like, what's going on at the Capitol is a distraction for what's going on with us, what they're not going to do while we protesting and carrying signs and kumbaya. We need to kumbaya together. We need to stop hating ourselves, because that's kind of part of the trickery that has come out of this white supremacy, is that they got us to hate ourselves. Kanye said it best. They got us to hate ourselves and love their wealth. Shorty hollering where the ball is at, So, but just kind of look at it. They want to be like us. Hip hop rules the world. Every commercial you turn on, it's got hip hop music playing in the background. Everybody wants to be Michael Jordan. I was picking up some carry-out food at a Thai restaurant, and it was a less melanated woman and her son, and he had a Black Panther doll. I was stoked, like I had to catch myself from saying something. I wanted to take a picture and text it back to the house, like, look, the little white kid got the Black Panther doll. That is awesome. That is awesome. So yeah, we influence everything. It's time for us to step into ourselves and step into our power, step into navigating the chaos. That's the magic. We got to step into our magic. I've been hearing all year, last year, Black girl magic, and that is awesome. I love celebrating queens. Salute. That is amazing. But at the same time, we make sure that the younger generation, because that's who's going to be taking care of us when we get older, that they understand that, yeah, it's more to the magic than making TikTok videos and the Busset challenge. Is we got a responsibility. We got a responsibility to make a change, and that's what this is about. So I'm gonna get off into the keys here. I got a couple little notes, and the first key that I mentioned was God is real, and along with him being real, he is in you, and he is in everything, and is everywhere. So they try to remove God from everything and act like he isn't real, so you won't believe in him or listen to him. And if you meditate, you can hear him. He'll talk to you. If you ask him questions, he'll give you answers. I'm anything that I share, I've already tried it, tested it, and proven it. It comes back with a money back guarantee. Everything, every tip and chip that I do is gonna have a money back guarantee. So when you hear that little voice, don't do it. And then that other voice, like, man, we should listen to that small voice. It's not going to be loud. Sometimes in a crisis scenario, it will be loud, but learn to listen to that voice, voice, that first mind. That's God talking to you. We got that. This body that we have is awesome. The melanin, this is like the most advanced technology on the planet. They have not been able to duplicate it yet. We got to own this. We have to step into our awesomeness. They want us to think that we are alone, so that we feel forsaken, when in reality, we are highly favored. Every day that you wake up, God has given you the breath of life and given you another opportunity to be an amazing person and help change the world. That's why we came here, to change the world. Everybody is on a superhero mission. People, it's great when you can find your purpose and discover your purpose. But for those that don't know how to figure or can't figure out what their purpose is, just pray and ask. God will tell you. The creator will tell you, because I don't want to offend anybody that today don't believe that God is real. But that's key number one to hacking white supremacy. As above, so below. Isaiah 54:17, no weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper. That's real. Very real. That is real. I'm not going to preach a sermon at all, but I'm going to give you some very powerful chips. Key number two to hacking white supremacy. White supremacy is the original AI, not artificial intelligence, artificial ideology. White supremacy is a lie. that is fabricated to justify committing crimes against humanity and conquering the world. It's a lie. It is Nazi ideology, and that is the belief that large civilizations can only be created by the use of slaves. This idea of white supremacy is the number one cancer on the planet, and it is negatively impacting the lives of humans. It can be treated and put into remission, or it can be cured and eradicated. So, how do you treat it? You treat white supremacy by changing laws and policies. You know, putting guidelines for people to act on a more moral compass and to be more compassionate um, to your neighbors. Love thy neighbor. But how do you cure it? And that is by knowing the truth, operating in truth, and sharing the truth. Uh, White supremacy is fraudulent, for one, because it's based off of no scientific data. There's no scientific data to prove that less melanated people are more superior than melanated people. I mean, if I don't know, the creator gave me everything I needed to survive and thrive on this planet. There's not ever been a day in my life that I went outside. It was so hot and the sun was so scorching that I had to put on suntan lotion. And the same thing that makes is vitamin D in the sun. The same thing that makes the plants grow nourishes us. Is I don't understand where this whole supremacy thing comes from, but I get it. I get it. And it's, kind of like a cover up or self therapy for his ego trip, or maybe a inferiority complex that you would have to hate somebody to make yourself feel good. And then no matter how you put them down, you still want to destroy them. And it's why? Because of the magic. It's this, because of the magic. Don't need no paperwork, don't need no, in the course of coming to some of these conclusions, and not even conclusions, revelations, because it helped transform my thinking, helped me be a smoother person. Um, you got to kind of accept some facts and just look at certain things for face value as they are. The very same people that hate us and oppose us and want to keep us in uh, second class citizenship or whatever, everything used to be, oh, that's ghetto. But now you see everybody doing the same ghetto stuff. So we have to stand up. If this country was built on the backs of slaves, just think of it as a tree, and you're balled up, and it's just everybody of color is balled up under this tree holding it up. And then you got this system is the tree house. Stand up. Let's topple the tree. Stand up, roots. We the roots. Let's topple the tree. Let's start a new system. Let's bring in a new system. Um, White supremacy is a lie. It's a fallacy. Artificial ideology. They call it artificial intelligence. Is the next thing you got to worry about, but it's all the same. Key number 3. This is one of the most powerful things that I heard that really kind of started my evolution and transformation from trying to fit in and buying. I bought into a whole lot of the marketing, drank some of the Kool-Aid. And at the end of the day, I had to go back to key number 1, and that's God is real. But when I heard this, I'll never forget that was just the really beginning of the change on this path for me to step into my greatness. And that is, I am not a human having a spiritual experience. I am a spirit having a human experience. When I heard that, it totally changed the way that I start looking at things. And it goes back to God is real, because in the word, it said about um, that what we are battling against is not flesh and blood, spirits and principalities and high places. And it just made a lot of sense. So keeping that in mind and just, doing some reading and meditating, I realized that if I was a human trying to have a spiritual experience, and that would make sense for me being able to act a fool, because there's really no repercussions, or I'm just here to consume air and eat and have as much fun. But if I'm a spirit having a human experience, then that means that I was already here before I came in this human form, and then I will still exist after this human form is gone. So why did I come? And was it a choice? Did I feel that I could come here and make a change? That I could come in here and be an impact and help somebody else stand up and wake up and wake somebody else up to stand up and wake up, and they wake somebody else to stand up and wake up, and we rise. That's superhero stuff. Um, so in this key number three, we need to remember whose we are. Wake up and remember whose you are. As humans, we often allow the trappings of a natural and physical world to ensnare and distract us from our purpose, ordained paths and destinies. Technology and the coveting of things material, immaterial, and false keep us too preoccupied to realize whose we are, our purpose and potential. Whose am I? I belong to the Creator, to God. Who am I? I am a child of God created in his image. I am not a God, I am of God. And I am not of this world, I am just in it. So, with that being said, I ask everybody, all my brothers, the melanated ones, the less melanated ones, all my sisters and queens, the melanated ones and the less melanated ones, shift into your gift. We all got gifts. We all came here with a purpose. Shift into your gift and do some superhero stuff. We on superhero assignment. That's why I got off into the DEI, because I can put on my cape and go out here and help change the world and make it a better place for the little people. Because my daughter just turned 7, and um, some stuff was on TV, had to do with the protest, and so she was asking about why was the people protesting, why was there so many people there, and the police had on their riot gear and stuff, and and explaining to her about racism, and she didn't have a concept of that, and so just explained to her that that's when uh, people don't like you and might want to hurt you because of the color of your skin, and she literally start crying behind hearing that people will want to hurt you or just because of the color of your skin without ever even meeting you or you doing anything to them. Um, so it's just powerful that we speak truth and we try to do better and be better. Key number four, your participation is voluntary. Key number four, your participation is voluntary. White supremacy got us, trying to play this game, trying to fit in and get in and fit in. And I tell young people, and I'm telling and sharing with anybody that's listening to this, you do not have to exist on the dark side in order to survive and enjoy life. Change is inevitable. The change is already taking place, but growth is optional. And I would just hope that every day that you wake up, you take the opportunity to grow. It's time for us to stop being distracted and tricked and innovate. It's time for innovation. That's what diversity does. That's what inclusion does. That's what equity does. Is it opens the windows and creates opportunities for innovation. Um, with this being Black History Month, I've seen a lot of people posting just some of the great and amazing inventions that people of color have contributed to the world, back in the 1800s, 1700s, just, out of necessity. And just think if they were included, if they were supported and encouraged, how many amazing innovations and inventions we could have, how many more we could have, how far much further technology could be. Um, you know, so the trauma that you take is the drama that you make. Oftentimes we end up acting out what has been done to us, and we do that to those around us and closest to us. And you know, you have to wake up to what's going on. Be awake to that. Your participation in white supremacy is voluntary. It's kind of like the movie Antebellum. That was a movie about fake plantation, but the abuse was real. And that's what white supremacy is. It's a fake ideology, but the abuse is real. And you do not have to participate in it. There are, I mean, the technological advances, just in the last year alone, the gain and the growth and how far people have gotten just from using the internet. I mean, it's the opportunity is there. You do not have to feel victimized. You do not have to feel like you have to bow down and sit there quietly or meekly, or be afraid to be who you are, be afraid to be yourself. You know, you can't wear your hair. They had to pass laws in California about discriminating against people of color, women, for wearing their natural hair. How crazy is that? But then somebody want to sit here and tell you, well, how far we've come along. We ain't really came that far. And I mean, you know, the technology has improved, but we still dealing with the same stuff. And um, the, as a community, we have to come together and we have to support each other. We have to care about each other and lift each other up. If necessity is the mother of ingenuity, then the solution to this problem called white supremacy is right around the corner. It's an outdated system that can only survive as long as people continue to support and participate in it. Your participation is voluntary. I think we, as the Black community in the Americas and really around the world, as we sit around and we wait and we protest and pray and hope that we can get somebody else to change, you know, we suffering from ED, and it is expectile dysfunction. While we sitting around waiting and hoping and believing that uh, we can get somebody to change or ask somebody to change is not willing to change. You know, people that believe in white supremacy, that support it, that believe in it, they benefit from it. They do not want to change. They need a change of heart. You can't change them. God can change them. You can't change them. They got to want to be changed. They have to want to change. They have to want to evolve and elevate. So in the meantime, while we're patiently waiting for that to occur, we got to work on us. We got to make sure that we aren't toxic. We got to make sure that we aren't becoming the monsters that's been terrorizing us, because it's so easy to do. Key five: stop trying to live the American dream and start living your dreams in America. Last year, everybody woke up in the same nightmare. You know, I've learned that when you discover that you're dreaming, you can control your dream. So control the dream and don't let the dream control you. So this is a little something that I had wrote in regard to this. They put the world to sleep, then orchestrated the most beautiful nightmare filled with fear, hopelessness, doom, and pain. They are wringing tears and sweat and sorrow out of our insecurities of tomorrow. Uncertainty has transformed into the outlook of the future. Hidden corporations profit off our personal data and internet searches, paying top dollar to know the demographics of our consumption. I don't know about anybody else, but I have never received a check from anybody for my personal data that has been sold and traded or internet searches or anything. And in 2019, I'm sure it's the same for last year, data was the number one traded commodity globally, period. They spending so much money marketing towards us, marketing to us, and then doing research on us that is anybody awake to that? That means something. That means if they want to know what we like, if they want to know what we think is popping, what we think is cool, so that they can then in turn cater to us so that they can get our dollars. I think one of the most misunderstood statistic, particularly pertaining to the United States, is that they talk about the shadow economy, black market, all that they're talking about is us. Um, People of color are 70% of the US consumer dollar. That means no matter what you see on TV, no matter what you see at the mall, that at the end of the day, no matter how much money we got, how poor we are or how poor we not, we spending the most money. We are the ones that carry the economy. We need to come together and really, instead of having a debate about it, we need to discuss about it and come up with some plans and some strategies to get everybody on board. That's the one thing we haven't done. And then with the COVID, everybody has been forced to change. So we got Zoom, we got what is it, Microsoft Workplace. There's so many different alternative avenues now for us to come together. DMs, email, so many different avenues and opportunities for us to come together and share information, for us to uh, unite, have synergy, and uplift each other and make some moves toward our progression. That's sustainable because we are sustaining everybody else. We have been doing it for hundreds of years, and we just kind of sitting around waiting. I mean, I don't know. I'm not extremely brave or courageous, but I'm tired of being scared. I'm tired of being if saying the wrong thing because I don't want to offend somebody. I'm tired of being afraid of sharing the truth because historically in the United States, when you share the truth, uh, people end up getting killed for talking about the truth. But I got to go back to key one, and that is God is real, and no weapon formed against me shall prosper. And even if uh, from buying into the marketing and the consumerism, I done been weaponized against myself because that's part of what white supremacy does is it weaponizes people of color against themselves. That's not going to prosper. God is good all the time. Key 6, God is the source. I'm one with the source is one with me. Use the force, Luke. They telling us in Star Wars. I mean, I don't know how many people in the sci-fi, but in the movies, they telling so much stuff in the movies, and you just got to kind of read between the lines. I watch. I'm a movie buff, and I watch for content. So hopefully it's entertaining, but I watch for content just to see what they're talking about, to see what they're on. Your faith is the force. God is the source. God is the source. Key 6. God is the source. And so it's like, what is your operating system? Is it the Apple, the iOS?
Detrick, sorry to interrupt. Just watch the time for
Okay.
me. I sent you some
Got you.
messages.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I will wrap it up here. What's your operating system? It gave us the word. Are you operating in the spirit? Um, Key 7 is the truth will set you free. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. John 8:32 verse. Uh, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. What's going on is beyond racial. It's a war against truth, and God is the truth, and so that means that it's a war against God. No one realize who you are. Knowledge is power. Self-knowledge is powerful. Um, on a last note, we need to stop running from our responsibility, which is your purpose and your assignment, and stop trying to escape it, and just realize that your responsibility is your reality. And I hope that those keys was helpful. And I'm a little long-winded because I get passionate about it, and I love talking about this stuff. But we got other great speakers, and I'm about to mute so that we can go on with this. But I appreciate everybody for taking the time to, hear what I had to say and receive some of these tips and chips.
Awesome, 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 awesome. Thank you so very much, Detrick. I did get some great nuggets out of there. I don't know, you can, now that you're not talking, you can go into the chat and see all the comments that were going up while you were doing that. And one of my biggest comments was that you're stealing my presentation because you said some of the things that I have in my presentation. So, that was awesome though. Guys, if you have any questions for Detrick, just jot them down until the end. We're going to try to go through the presentations and then ask the questions at the end. Myrie is a registered retirement consultant and managing partner at Eau Claire Partners, Inc. She's a licensed insurance and financial advisor in Ontario with over 13 years experience in insurance and banking combined. She's also a certified life coach, motivational speaker, and writer who is a published best-selling author of the book, Overcome Lack and Step into Abundance, Your Ultimate Guide to Financial Freedom. Diana has written articles for a variety of local and international magazines and other publications. She has a BA honors in English and a Master of Science in Labor and Employment Relations. She's a member of the Niagara chapter of the Human Resources Professionals Association, the largest HR association in Canada. Diana is also a director of the board at Suitcase in Point Theatre Company, located in St. Catharines, Ontario. She's the creator, host, and producer of her talk show, Conversations with Diana, where she shares inspiring, real stories of real people who have made a significant impact in their communities. Passionate about helping to empower individuals and the wider community, you will also find her volunteering at numerous events.
Thank you for that introduction, Karlene.
My
And I
pleasure.
really want to say it's a pleasure to be here. I'm really glad to be a part of this discussion. I think it's timely and very important.
I am so happy that you're here. Happy to have you.
Thank you. So today I'll be presenting on the topic, how can Black people shift their financial narrative and create sustainable financial change? Next slide. During the course of my discussion, I will be discussing certain highlights, such as how to build healthy money management skills, and I'll be looking at some of the barriers to financial stability in the Black community. I'll also be discussing ways to take back control of our finances and how we can immediately get wealth. Another point I will be considering sharing with you is how to develop a healthy relationship with money, which is vital, very vital in order to ensure that you have financial freedom. And last but by no means least, supporting our own. It is through supporting our own that we all can have the future and our children, ensuring that our children's generation or we leave a lasting legacy for our children and their children. And if time permits, I'll take some questions. Next slide. I always like to start off on my presentations with an icebreaker. And I want it to be a bit interactive at this point. So for persons who wish to unmute themselves, they can, or you can put your comment in the chat box. But how many of us know what the financial literacy rate is in the world today? If you want to hazard a guess, I'm going to give you a couple of choices. Do you think it's 10%, 90%, or 30%?
I was actually going to say 75%, but since you gave those three numbers, it has to be one of those three. So I'm going to say 30%.
Okay. Anyone else wants to hazard a guess? Thanks, Karlene, for that.
No problem.
Some other responses.
I'm getting.
Someone says
I got
30. I have someone else saying 30.
10. Yeah.
I'm Stefan. I'm eating lunch. I will start the video in a minute, but I'm just eating lunch. But I'd say 10%.
You would say what? I missed that.
10.
10?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anybody else wants to contribute? Okay, so the correct answer is, next slide.
It was there all along. I should have peeked.
So 33%. 33%. So depending on who you're looking at, I know some people said 30%, and as I go on this slide, I'll be discussing what I found in my research. No, stay on the previous planks. So according to the S&P, they did a survey where they measured the financial literacy in the world. 33% of adults worldwide, can you imagine, have financially literate, whereas in the United States it's 57%, 33%, 30% of women are financially literate, and 35% of men are financially literate. Doing some further research, I found that Canada is ahead of the game as it relates to financial literacy, where one study showed that we're actually 78%. So I thought that was very interesting to know. Next slide, please. So overall, we can see that the financial literacy rate overall in the world is very low, is not where it should be. And what was interesting to note is that women have a lower financial literacy rate than men, and our young people are an especially vulnerable group, as they, which allows us to know who to target. You know, if we want to make sure that we leave a lasting legacy for future generations, we must target the youth in order to give them the information that they will need in order to make the necessary changes to bring about sustainable change. So I thought I would share that with everyone. Hopefully those who did not necessarily guess the correct answer will know that, you know, it is low. It is not as low as 10%, but it is low and it needs to really increase. And that's really going to be the crux of my presentation today, on how we can focus on increasing our financial literacy rate so that we can, as Black people, as a Black community, be more, shift our narrative so that we can have more sustainable or more positive financial outlook. Next slide, please. how to build healthy money management skills. It is my belief that in order to begin to shift our financial narrative, we first need to educate ourselves about money and how to manage it. And that's a quote directly taken from my book, Overcome Lack and Step into Abundance, Your Ultimate Guide to Financial Freedom, where I believe that by educating ourselves, we will be able to get the power we need in order to take back control of our destiny, because I believe our finances, how we manage it, is linked to our destiny. So focusing on increasing opportunities for the collective is very important, as it allows us to learn more about financial concepts like saving, investing, and risk diversification, among other things, and how to distribute it. I think in terms of how to allow people to have more opportunities, we have to educate them about things like saving, investing, and managing how to distribute that wealth. Because once you achieve the wealth, so many statistics are coming out now showing that people are trying to save more now. They're actually managing to save more. Despite what you hear in the news, quite a few people have managed to let COVID-19, they have benefited from the gift of having savings. But then a lot of them don't know what to do with these savings, you see. So it's very important to not only educate them about certain things like managing money, but how do they generate wealth or build on what they have worked so hard to save? So I think it's very integral that we work on taking every opportunity available to educate and learn more about these concepts, because without knowledge, as they say, the people perish. We need to increase access to wealth building channels. Many options are out there to choose from. You just need to go on the internet and research. There's so much or so many opportunities to learn about how to save more, how to diversify your income. And some of these topics I'll be delving into a little bit deeper later on in the discussion. Seek out professional advice from trusted insurance and financial advisors such as myself, because we have a wealth of knowledge to share. And I can't tell you how many times you try to give people information, but without having them seek you out, instead of you having to be the one to always go and, do certain presentations or say, you know what, I'm available. I would like to share this information with you. I can't tell you how many times it is that like you're pulling teeth. We tend to pay attention to other things, but we don't pay attention to our financial health. And just like you go to a doctor to take care of your health or to make sure that things are the way they need to be, so that you can be proactive and not, so as to be proactive and not let your health deteriorate. You want to make sure that just like you go to the doctor, you go to your financial doctor, your financial specialist, to make sure that things are the way they need to be if they aren't already, because we're trained in this area. Nothing is wrong with seeking out information on the internet, because yes, there's information out there, but not all the information is accurate. You still need that one-on-one or that personal interaction, so that you can say to the person directly, you know what, this is my particular situation. What I saw on the internet may not necessarily be for me. And they would be able to point that out. Like, for instance, in the case of retirement savings, you may be wondering, well, what's the best type of investment to go into? Not everyone is cut out to be a day trader, for instance. You need to focus on long-term, not the quick turnaround, but long-term, steady burning of how to make sure that the money that you want to see in the future, you're making sure that you're putting it into the right types of investments. Now, I'm not saying, please don't misunderstand, I'm not saying it is wrong to do day trading, but if you don't know anything about it, I would caution you to really not dabble too much into that. So not to stray too much from the point, make sure you consult a specialist like myself to ensure that you are doing the right things and doing it in a timely fashion. I believe that when you learn, you should teach. Part of my mandate this year is to impact 100 families, whereas I'm giving them as much information as possible, doing financial reviews, making sure you have your financial checkup, so to speak. There are certain checklists that I go through to ensure that you are on the right track to maintaining financial health. And if it's a case where you're not on the right track, or you're doing something wrong, or you're not necessarily able to save as much as you would like, or you don't know where to begin, it all starts with going out there and seeking the help. So I want to be able to teach others. You know, they say once you learn something, you're responsible to make sure that you don't keep the knowledge inside, but we need to spread the knowledge. And that's my mandate this year, to really impact at least 100 families this year to change the trajectory of their financial situation. Next slide, please. I think from time to time I may pause just in case someone has a question. I'm just going to look to see if there are any questions here. Yes, definitely. I'll be touching on that shortly. Yeah, so things like your taxes, and I must put a disclaimer, I'm not a tax specialist, but what we do as financial advisors, we work with other professionals to make sure that you get the best information. So for instance, I will work with your tax specialist to ensure that, for instance, when we're setting up an RRSP, for instance, you want to make sure that you're not over contributing, because that could incur penalties and you don't want that to happen. Ways in which we can take back control of our finances. The first step is this the next slide? Just wanted to make sure. The first step is admit that you need help. You know, like anybody who is just starting to recover from, whether it be addiction or something that is they're having a struggle with, the first step in order to make that change is to admit that you need help. I can recall a time when I was going through a very stressful personal situation, and won't go into too much specifics now, but at the end of the day, I was in a lot of debt. And when I say a lot, I felt so overwhelmed. But one day it clicked to me that, you know what, instead of sitting and wallowing in this self-pity and not knowing, not changing anything, but it getting worse, I needed to admit that, you know what, I need help, can't do this alone. I'm going to go out there and seek professional assistance. And you know what, it was the best thing I ever did. Not only did I get myself out of that situation in a timely fashion, because I was able to get out of that pretty quickly. Don't get me wrong, it was a lot of sacrifice, determination, and it took a lot of willpower, but I was able to get it done. But the main point I want to stress is admit that you need help, and then go out there and seek the advice from a trusted financial advisor. Because if it was not for that person to sit me down and say, you know what, you have to make some tough decisions. One of the things she told me to do was cut up my credit cards. I was like, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. And she said, no, you know what, you need to do it, because if you really want to get from point A to point B, this is what you need to do. And there were some other things that she mentioned, and I said, you know what, she's a specialist, she's a professional. I told her some of the goals I wanted to achieve and the time frame, and she was like, if you want to do this in a specific time, you really need to follow my direction. So you have to be coachable as well. You have to be willing to make the sacrifice. Set up a plan and stick to it. She put me on a plan, and before I knew it, it was as if eventually, yes, it was difficult at first, but eventually it became second nature. So things like not eating out all the time, that was something that I used to do. And you know what, to this day, I try not to eat out as much. Sometimes because of circumstances, more convenient, yes, but for the most part, just going back to that particular time, I can remember it as clear as day. I started taking my lunch to work. Those are some things that I think a lot of people who may be wondering, well, how am I going to find the money to save? Start with looking at your habits. You know, what are the things that you tend to spend a lot of money on? Do you buy a lot of coffee, for instance? Instead of buying coffee every day, you could make your own coffee and carry in a mug. You know, those are some little tips that I talk about in my book as well. So I won't really spend too much time on that, but just to have a plan and stick to it and make it as realistic and consistent as possible. Because if you don't, you're going to find that soon after starting, you're just going to quit. You're not going to be in it for the long haul. And in order to get back on track and make sure you're controlling things, because remember, things are haywire. That's the main reason why you want to cut back and control your finances. And in order to do that, you have to make tough decisions and you have to be realistic but consistent. Yes, a lot of people are embarrassed because they, you know, at the time, I really didn't think that would happen to me. But like I said, personal situation, things happen, life happens, and things kind of got out of control. And because I felt, you know, I had a young child at the time, I wanted to make sure that I left her. I didn't want her to see me like this. I didn't want to teach her bad habits or to not be able to provide for her the way I believe she deserved to be provided for. So I swallowed my pride, and a lot of times we have to do that if we want to make difficult and tough decisions. You have to really swallow our pride and make the best decision that will benefit us in the long run. Reduce spending and diversify income. No, reduce spending is not always so easy, and sometimes it comes down to really having a strict budget put in place. And if it is not something that is particularly easy for you to do, that's where it makes sense to get someone who can sit with you and you be open and honest with that person and say, look, this is a situation, this is something I cannot cut back on. Let us see how we can improve on things. And you know what? Sometimes at the end of the day, it simply means getting a better job. Gone are the days when people solely relied on one income source. What COVID-19 has taught is that we can no longer be dependent on one income source or on a job or job security. You know, no job is secure really. And I've always felt that persons need to be more mindful of using their talents and making sure you utilize every opportunity to gain income. And in order to supplement that, you need a good financial plan, which can help you to make your money work harder for you, because at the end of the day, it's really hard to save. That's a given, but you want to ensure that you take value of what we call compounding and using the time you have now. Now is the time. Don't wait until tomorrow. Don't wait until next week. Now is the time to take action and make your money work harder for you. And I'll delve into that shortly. Next slide, please. Next slide. How to immediately get wealth. So the first thing is to see yourself as a money machine. What do I mean by a money machine? A money machine is what brings about cash or what brings about wealth. So in order to have the nice job or in order to have the nice car, live in a nice home, you need a money machine. And that money machine, guess what, is you. So in order to make sure that you get wealth immediately, the first thing to do is to purchase insurance. Now, some of you may not agree and some of you may agree, but because I've been in this industry for so long, and even before being in this industry, I've seen the value that this offers because I've read up on it, I've studied it. If you don't take care of this machine, it's like an ATM machine. I'm sure that if you had an ATM machine, literally, let's just be a little bit crazy. If you had an ATM machine in your home, wouldn't you do everything in your power, meaning it's going to give you as much cash as you want? Wouldn't you do everything in your power to take care of it, to make sure you protect it? I'm asking, wouldn't you? I know I would. So for me, I know I can't pay that car insurance, or I know I can't pay that home insurance, or I know I can't go to that job if I don't take care of this body here. I'm a money-making machine. And for me to protect myself, because if anything should happen to me, guess what? The bills aren't paid, things don't happen. I need to be able to do certain things, think, be productive in order to make my dreams come true, and in order to think a certain way and put together the right financial plan so that I can see the results of the fruits of my labor, right? So in order to spread the risk of dying too soon, living too long, or becoming incapacitated due to sickness or to a disability, or an accident, I need to be able to spread that risk. And that's what insurance does. Not only does insurance allow you to spread the risk of those things happening, which quite frankly, it can happen anytime to any of us. And I could go into so many stories. Just as recently as a few days ago, a family member, well, a distant family member, her daughter, something happened to her while she was working, and now she is in a vegetative state. This is someone who is young, beautiful, lots of energy, obviously had goals and dreams, and in a blink of an eye, something fell on her head, and she's now, we're praying for her and we hope for the best. But in any event, unless a miracle happens, you know what that means for her family, for her future. So what insurance does, it makes us able to, in the event of the unfortunate or the unforeseeable happening, this money machine is protected, or the future that person could have had in terms of income earning, income generating. You get my drift? That's what the insurance does. So what a financial or insurance advisor can do is sit with you one-to-one, look at your particular circumstances. For persons who are in high-risk jobs, for instance, statistics show that Black people are highest percentage of Black people are in risky occupations. So for me, having something like disability insurance is key. If you're self-employed, having something like critical illness insurance is key, right? So those are some of the things that can help you to not only protect yourself, but protect your family, protect your livelihood, protect your future. Imagine if you work really hard to save the money and something happened to you, tragically happened to you, and you can't work another day in your life. If you were to put aside, if you had the foresight to put aside something for, let's say, critical illness coverage or disability income coverage, imagine what that can do. It can either save the money you worked so hard to save. Not only that, but it gives you additional money to put towards, your expenses for treatment or whatever the case may be, to help your children with their education, stuff like that, right? It's all dependent on what is important to you. But what the main thing I wanted to bring across is it helps to ensure that you have an estate right away. The minute you purchase life insurance, you automatically get an estate, or you automatically have an estate to leave behind. So for persons who find it hard to save, I know a lot of persons who they don't have what we call a big estate, but they have life insurance. Life insurance policy may be worth 500, a million, whatever the case may be. That is something they know they can leave behind for the rest of, their future generations. And a lot of wealthy people, they may not say this, but a lot of them start their child on an insurance policy because they know right away it entitles that child to an estate, right? They make sure that once a child is born, they open another policy and that child is a beneficiary in case anything should happen to them. So I know people with 12, 15, not to say they have 15 children, but they have insurance for different things. And it's because they see the value of having it. So having insurance is one way in which you can immediately get wealth and build an estate to ensure that your future and your children's future is protected, and you have you leave aside a lasting legacy for them, or a rich legacy for them. Keep your savings as savings. Savings stop becoming savings the moment you spend it. So I can't stress this enough, that if you have something called an emergency savings, which forms part of a healthy financial plan, you must be deliberate and consistent. If you know you need to pull money from it for certain things, let's say you had a car trouble, then that is what the emergency savings is for. But if you're saving for retirement, your RSPs, for instance, your tax-free savings account, for instance, it might be different things for different people, don't get me wrong. But if that's the main purpose of your retirement, your RSPs or your tax-free savings accounts, then it should stay that way. Because if you keep dipping into it, at the end of the day, you're robbing yourself, you're robbing your future self, that is. And you're gonna always find like you're always, instead of moving forward, you're consistently trying to play catch up, because the minute you take that money out, it decreases the value right away, obviously. And not only that, but it makes it even harder, because with each day that passes, the value, the spending value, or the return on that investment is harder to catch up with because of inflation, right? So we want to ensure that we keep our savings as savings, and we don't touch it. I know it's sometimes easier said than done, but it starts with having good habits from the beginning. And if you know what, there's no shame in saying, you know, things happen to me, but we also have to be mindful that we should try and learn from our mistakes. And I recognize this early, that if I didn't put aside, every time I get some money, if I didn't put aside a certain percentage of that, where would I be today? There have been things that would happen, and I can easily say, you know what, I have this in place, I'm going to take it from here, because I made a sacrifice, right? It takes sacrifice. So just not to belabor the point, we need to make sure that we have a savings system put in place as part of a financial plan, in order to make sure that, God forbid, something like COVID-19 happens again, we're not scrambling, right? And I know a lot of persons are particularly, you know, through no fault of their own, they don't have a job, they're jobless. But I think sometimes those things can be blessings, because I've been through redundancy before. I've been through situations where I, you know, didn't have a job, but I was able to pivot and become more self-sufficient, and always maintain a plan B, always a plan B or C if possible. Next slide. How to develop a healthy relationship with money. So anything you pay attention to tends to grow. So you want to always monitor your money and review your spending habits. So I won't belabor the point about spending habits, because if you want to save more, you have to obviously curb your spending habits and try to keep it to a minimum. What a lot of us do, we tend to spend more than we earn. And if we know we need to buy certain things, then if you can't maintain a budget, then we either need to up the income or find additional streams of income to maintain the certain lifestyle that you want to live. Because we have to be realistic at the end of the day. If it is something that, for instance, you are not, and I may be jumping a little bit ahead here, but for instance, there are certain triggers for some people. They come in, Diana, I don't know what it is. I make good money, but I just can't seem to save. Can you help me? And when we start to pinpoint, like, okay, tell me all the different expenses. What did you buy this month? Just lay it out for me. We look at this bank statements and whatnot. And you find that this person has a shopping addiction. They just constantly shop online. They don't know what it is. They just love to shop. Sometimes it's just a psychological thing. They may be going through some depression, something happening at home. It could be so many different things that triggers that person to shop. Some people eat, some people shop, some people gamble. You know what? So it means then having a really hard look at what you're going through, and look at your habits and see if you can pinpoint if it's something that there's a trigger for you that consistently makes you go out there and spend more than you earn, right? I speak about this in my book as well, where a study showed that there's certain psychological triggers that can impact a person being able to save. And if you want to know more about that, you can, read the book. It's available on Amazon. But the main thing I want people to focus on is, if it's something that is very difficult, you may need to seek psychological or some type of counseling to get to the root of it. Because sometimes it's just a mindset shift, and sometimes it's something that you have to work through in order to get to where you need to be. Recognize the difference between a want and a need. That's very important, because there are some people that tend to, if you go shopping, they don't go with a list, and they just basically shop, not paying attention to what you're buying. Is it because you're trying to satisfy a need? You need meat today, so you're going to make sure you buy certain types of meat. Or is it because you just feel for lobster or you feel for shrimp that you're gonna, go against? And you might have a fridge full of food, but you still find yourself going to the supermarket every day. Don't know why, but you just keep going every day. So you have to look at things like, is this something that I really need, or is this something that I want, or I just feel for? And look at the reasons why. Right? So just pay attention as much as possible to what you're spending on, what your expenses are on, and try to make every effort to learn as much about money and how to manage it as possible, because in learning, that's the only way we can grow and the only way we can overcome some of the challenges we're facing. If you find yourself, for instance, out of a job, you may need to look at things like getting reskilled or looking at having a different career. Focus on a passion of yours that you probably, because you were so busy working and slaving away at this job that, to be quite frank, you didn't necessarily enjoy. Maybe now is the time to really sit down and think hard, well, is this something that I could make some money from, and do the research and there's so much support out there for people starting a business. I mean, I think between the time COVID started and now, there've been an explosion of small businesses opening up and people just taking a chance on themselves. So I just want to encourage anyone that's going through that right now to not let it defeat you, but to know that you have so much potential within you that you can use every opportunity at your disposal. So many resources available for persons who need career counseling. Maybe you're thinking of switching a career. And if you need help with that, I'm sure that we can assist you in one way or the other, because together we can help each other. And I think that's what we need to do as a Black community, to help and support our own. Next slide. Nice segue into this slide, which is to support Black-owned businesses and other professionals, because at the end of the day, if we don't support our own Black people, then we are to blame. I personally have sat back and looked at the things I purchased and have thought, well, okay, could I have made a different choice? And if so, why not? So those are things that I've made a conscious decision to seek out Black professionals. Not that I'm against other races, I'm not, but I'm just trying to give the opportunities to someone else, whereas before I would just automatically just go to, another particular person of that particular shade, for instance. Obviously, if there's no viable alternative, then that's my cat. I'm so sorry if you heard that. If there's no other viable solution or alternative, then for sure you go to where you feel comfortable. But at the end of the day, we need to support our own. And I'm personally going to be looking out for more Black businesses to support, more Black authors to support, because I think in order for us to see change, we have to be that change, as my colleague had spoken about earlier in his presentation. We have to, if we want to see our people be a success, we have to contribute to that. We need more Blacks owning businesses like Amazon and think of all the big names out there. When you look at who the CEO is or who the head is, it's always a white person. Not knocking anybody who is on the call right now. I'm not knocking you, but at the end of the day, why can't we see ourselves like that? I think it's very important to start dreaming again and start supporting each other to pursue some just dream big. And if we support people who are looking to do things like that, then it makes it even easier for them. Next slide. So I'm just going to pause here and see if there are any questions. Anyone has any questions regarding?
Yeah, you guys use this time now to ask Diana her questions because she has to jump off. She won't be here until the end. So I'll give you the opportunity to ask her your questions now, and then we'll move on to the next speaker.
I'm seeing something here from Z. How do we get our family, friends, community to see the importance of health and life insurance when there seems to be so much distrust, as many see it as a waste of money until, of course, something happens?
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Z. That's a very, very good question. I think telling there's no, how should I say this? Yes, there have been bad experiences. People have bad experiences every day, and I'm not going to say, you know, bad things don't happen in everything. I mean, I went to another provider for my internet, and because the person was singing it praises, and I had to switch immediately because it was just not what I thought it would be. Things happen, right? But for the vast majority of persons who have life insurance, it has been a blessing, right? I'm one of those persons. I know people literally like close to me who can tell you if they didn't have it, they don't know where they would be today. They don't know how their children would go to college or to university. And it would take too much time to go into all the good stories. And I would say for every bad story, there are like 3 good stories. So I would say get the information firsthand. Don't be turned off by what people think or what people say. Get the information for yourself, because it's been proven that it has to form part of your financial plan. And not only that, but things like seeing someone like myself, a financial advisor, can help you with your estate planning needs. You definitely have to think about things like how to avoid certain taxes, or how to be prepared for certain things in the event of death. Things like setting up a will, a power of attorney. Case in point, the accident that happened with that young lady. If she, for instance, she had a power of attorney and she could not think for herself, or she couldn't make certain decisions for herself, that particular document would ensure that her wishes were met. So I don't know if that was the case for her. It would be unfortunate if it wasn't, but things like that, don't wait until something happens. Seek the advice now and get certain things in place, like having a will. That's very crucial, especially if you have a property, or if you have any types of savings, or if you have anything of value, whether that be a painting, a piece of jewelry. If you have children, especially, you need to ensure that should something happen to you, you have a guardian set up, and a will is something that I can help you with if that's something that you need, among other things. Right. Is there any more questions? But thank you so much, Z. I hope I answered your question.
You did. And the reason I asked it is because I don't know about other communities, but it seems to become a norm for us to be going to GoFundMe. And I'm just like, why is that the norm? And it's not the norm for us to think of getting insurance. And I find that people will say, well, that's a waste of money, or I don't have the money. And it's like, well, you have it for this, that, and the other. So I don't know how to gently say it. So it's like, this is important, and that we shouldn't be relying on GoFundMe because we thought travel insurance was a waste, or we thought health insurance was a waste, or we thought it was a waste to get insurance to pay for our funerals in particular. And especially because our people don't even know that in Ontario, if your family member does not have the money, the government will pay for the funeral. But even when you tell people that, they're like, oh, I don't want no cheap funeral, you know? So it's like, how do you talk to people and make them see reason? Because I'm just like, this is not the way.
Okay, it seems like she's frozen. So Diana, you take over and continue.
Oh, no, I'm not frozen.
Oh, you're not frozen? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I was just responding to Z. I was saying that a lot of persons, when they made that oh, I don't want to, it's too much money or whatever, they had a bad experience, or they knew of someone that had a bad experience. So what I'm trying to say is it's just about educating them. And sometimes it's unfortunate, but sometimes people get set up with the wrong type of policy. Maybe they had a policy that wasn't right for them. And that's why I said it's important to go to a specific, or someone who's trained and specialized. Just like not all doctors are the same, not all advisors are the same, right? And once you go through what we call a financial needs analysis, we can determine, okay, what's the right solution for that particular person? What's the right price point? If the person made it clear from the beginning that, hello? Sorry about that. If the person made it clear from the beginning that, you know what, this is what I can afford, then, and which they should, then at the end of the day, it shouldn't be too expensive for them. Because I always say, is it worth it to take the risk? Think about it. If it only takes pennies or a few cents to make sure that in the event of you becoming critically diagnosed with a critical illness like cancer, which is as you know, one of the leading causes of death in Canada, that's something that you don't want to play with, right? And yes, critical illness insurance is a bit costly, to be honest with you, but sometimes you have to make the sacrifice. We make it for other things, but sometimes you have to make the sacrifice. And sometimes the sacrifice far outweighs what the consequences, if we don't make that sacrifice, would be. So I would just say, you can't always force the person to drink the water when you take them to the well, but at least try to show them that here's another option, consider it, and leave the rest to the advisor. They will be the best person to explain to them or explain away some of the objections that they may have.
Thank you so
But
much.
keep
Great
doing what you're
presentation.
doing.
Thank
You're
you.
most welcome. And going on to the other slide, if anyone has any further questions, the next slide should have my contact details. You can send me an email at diana.myrie@allclearpartners.com or at info@dianamyrie.com. You can also reach out to me via my email, via my website, dianamyrie.com or allclearpartners.com. I'm also on Instagram at Diana Myrie and Step Into Abundance, and I'm also on Facebook and LinkedIn. So there's so many ways to reach me, or for those of you who may want to know more or to have your own one-on-one consultations, feel free to reach out. And as I said, I kept this for the last moment. If anyone goes on my website, dianamyrie.com, and subscribes, you have the chance of winning a copy of a personalized autographed copy of my best-selling book. Just as a gesture of thank you, and I think it's very important because it's a step-by-step guide to help you with overcoming some of the financial challenges and to learning a bit more about some of the concepts I introduced today.
How are you guys finding the session so far? Let me fill the silence while I'm looking for the information. How are you finding the session so far? Unmute and say something, please.
Very informative, really good.
Thank you, Sandra. Appreciate that. Anybody else?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been
no, I think-
fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee.
Especially the financial one. That's one that is really big for me as well. And I think economic empowerment is key. It's one of the big keys for our community.
Yes.
So that was fantastic.
Yeah, it's
think,
a big thing for me too. I talk about it all the time. Go ahead, Detrick, sorry.
Just the fact that bringing out the point that it's kind of a stigma or taboo in our community to discuss or even be concerned about life insurance until we actually need it. That's it's a must-have conversation, just period, because I hadn't even thought about the fact of how many people go fund once something that unexpected didn't happen. And I've seen it myself, but I never really even thought about it in terms of, that's an issue, because that should not be our option to handle those situations. So I thought you did pretty great on the presentation. Okay.
All right. I found Alethia's bio here, and now she sent me 2 lines of a bio. An accomplished woman like this, she sends me actually 1, 2, 3, and a little bit on the 4th line. So she says,
right.
She says she's Alethia Cadore. She's a private practice with CA consultants. She's a registered psychotherapist and wellness consultant. I guess that's all she wants us to know about her. So I'm going to set up her slide now and have her present to you. So welcome, Alethia. Alethia is going to be talking today about mindful leadership, leading with acceptance, compassion, and time during stressful times. So I'm looking forward to hearing her. Let's
start now. And I just want to thank Detrick, and I also want to thank Diana for their powerful presentations. And I was just jotting down notes, Detrick, when you were speaking and just saying yes in the background. And, this is what we need to do collectively as a community, is that we really need to pay attention to our finances, and we also need to pay attention to who we are and who's around us at this time, and just really start assessing things. And When I created this presentation, I was thinking about two things, because I have a private practice, CA Consultants, and I am a psychotherapist, and I also have a background in child and youth care. So my original profession is in child and youth counseling, which means that I started age 6, and I work all the way up the developmental span to 29. And then I also work with adults. So I see a wide range of people in my practice that are having some difficulties managing some conflicts, and it happens through their relationships. And it could be a relationship conflict that they had at work, and they were triggered by something that happened to them in their childhood. And they're really having some difficulties managing how to communicate and navigate through that situation. I'm also working with young people that are new in their career. And right now they're experiencing some of the racial tension that we have endured for many years. And they're looking at a lot of things right now, and they're saying to me, you know, number one, how did we manage through all this time? So Detrick was right on when he was talking about, you know, the way that we have to navigate certain spaces when we're working here. The other thing that I'm noticing with young people that are starting in their career, some of them are in management, and they're really having a hard time representing who they are in the position that they're in. And reason being is, like Detrick had said, there's some issue with getting respect from someone that does not look like them. And the fact that we are moving in these spaces and we're doing really well for ourselves. However, there's still an issue that people are struggling with, and it's their identity and how to manage and how to lead, knowing that, you know what, maybe the climate and the workplace that you're working in, they might not be supportive to Black lives. And they're sitting there and they're figuring things out, and they're stepping back, and they're doing some self-reflection. And the self-reflection is, I need to research my company to find out if this is a safe place for me to be working. And then the second thing for young people is, you know what, I just started my career. Is this the place, and this is what I have to endure to so-called make it? And they feel a lot of pressure because of the fact that, yes, we do as parents have expectations, and we also want to strive for Black excellence, but we have to understand the system that we're in. It's not our system. They don't understand much about our family, our community, and how we grow, unless you have had the experience of going back to where your forefathers or your ancestors were from, your original birthplace. Not all of us were born in Canada. I'm an immigrant. So for me, I make it a point, and my parents have made it a point for me to go back home so that I had that understanding of how they arrived, because that was stressful. And when we settled here, some of us didn't settle here with everything. Some of it was violent. Some of us didn't have certification, which we call papers, right? So now that we're growing and we are getting the education that we need, we are moving into these management positions. We are ready to lead, but there's still something in the back of us that feels that we're not worthy, we don't need it. There's a lot of stress. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. Also for employees, I can go into my presentation, sorry, because I can go on. So my next slide is right where this light bulb is. Yeah, we're facing a lot of uncertainty. And the uncertainty right now isn't really necessarily about COVID, because I think right now with all the media and all the news and all the stress that we're hearing about it, I think that's what's causing us to have a lot of anxiety. Are we really getting the facts? Are we really getting the information that we really need to make the right decisions for ourselves and for our family? Also, for people in management and leadership positions, they probably are used to working in an office building, and now everyone's working at home. So there's money that needs to be spent on renting space that nobody's occupying. And, you know, maybe you did have a job and it's been a year and you've realized that because of the shutdowns, you're not going to be returning to that same job. And people are saying, okay, now, what am I going to do? I need to pivot. So we're worrying about some things. And my thing is, when you are worried about those uncertainties, what do you do? Yes, you just go to this one. Yes, so what can we do as leaders? And, you know, I also want to say you can also institute, like you can also cross out leader and put parents. You can also say someone that's the guardian, someone that's being responsible for someone else. Or also you can also say for yourself, what if you are that manager or that supervisor that's in that position? What do you do at this time to motivate and support people so that they feel welcome, so that they feel safe in their workplace, or they feel safe in the environment that you need to take care for them? But I wanted to concentrate on the workplace today because I'm noticing that people are making a decision. It's been a year. They know that this income, you know, it might run out. So they have to make a decision and they need to pivot. They need to go back to school. They need to re-educate themselves. So when you I can impact and motivate my employees. I've read some literature, and when you click on the blue button here, the literature will pop up. And it was an article that I read in the Harvard Business Review. And it said, according to the Harvard Business Research, when leaders, people in a position of authority are stressed, their anxiety can be felt across the organization, often to the point that good employees will walk from the job to save their own health. And imagine if we're thinking about workplace, we're also thinking about community. Think about what's going on for parents and families right now. They're at home. The stress is rising. We don't really have much options. So what do? So when you continue with the review, it talks about when leaders fail to manage their stress in a constructive way, more than 50% of their employees feel that they're in a workplace that could be harmful or ineffective. So think about that in the workplaces that you've been in, or think about that with your parents, or maybe it's you when you're feeling and facing huge amount of stress. How are you communicating? How are you showing up to work? Have you noticed that at your workplace with your boss right now or management, that they're becoming really tense and they're really looking at productivity and management outcomes? Are we realistically believing that because we're in a pandemic that people can really achieve those goals that the company wants you to achieve? Are you able to manage those targets? If the manager is stressed, if your leader is not thinking clearly, what message is that to the rest of the employees? And then I know for myself, having been in these work environments, you know, when I see my leader feeling uncertain, what's the first thing people usually say? Oh gosh, if the ship is going to go down, right? You usually look to the leader and see how the leader is managing the ship. So if the person at the helm is not focused, if they're not leading effectively, if they're not communicating effectively, what do you think is going to happen to their employees? So for the next slide, which Karlene definitely got into, we have to stop and think and do some self-reflection here. And absolutely, morale does drop when the leader is not focused and they're feeling uncertain because the rest of the team is looking to them and it's like, whoa, I might want to jump ship too because this is not working out right. But we're seeing that happening now in major corporations where they're just closing down and people are just saying, you know what, you're furloughed. You're going to be home for a period of time. And some of us enjoyed the break because we were working 2-3 jobs, always on the go, never really having time for what matters. But now we're reassessing that because it's been a year now. And that, you know, managers are coming to me in their practice and they're saying, you know what, I'm trying to get in touch with my employee, XYZ, and you know what, they're not picking up. I have them on a schedule. I'm monitoring the schedule, which we need to talk about, and they're not productive. Things are not being met with the target date. So they're coming to me and they're stressed because there's people that are their CEOs and their stakeholders and they want to see some outcomes. And people are not in the position to maintain the productivity that they used to a year ago. So what do? How can you as a leader think about what you can do to enhance employer engagement and maintain productivity? And I always ask managers, like, how are you showing up to work every day? And I ask employers, how do you show up to work every day? Are you transforming and transcending the policy of the company and the values of the company? Or is it the fact that, you know what, I just need my paycheck right now. I'm going to put in what I need to put in, and then I'm out. Things have to change because we're no longer going into those confined workspaces. We're at home, and sometimes life happens in our environment. And sometimes we're going to need to be a little bit more flexible with how we approach things and manage things. So that's why I ask people, how are you managing your emotions? How are you managing your stress levels? When you come into work as a manager, are people so afraid that they don't even want to see you because they don't know how you're going to show up? Or if you're in a management position, are your employees afraid to come to you because they've noticed how you respond and react to situations and they're really concerned with what they see? And this is a time when I'm just going to take a little pause and I'm going to ask people, management and employees, are you aware of your HR policy? Have you reviewed it? When you signed up for work, did you look at your wellness initiatives? Did you look at the packages to see what you can offer your employees and how you can serve others? Because when we're in leadership, that's what we need to be mindful of. It's not only about us and our stressor, it's what we're transmitting to the people around us that are looking for our direction and our guidance. And the reason why I put parents into this is because, you know what? People are looking for your guidance. And if you're not focused, if you're having some financial difficulties, if you're facing racial tension at home, where do you think it's going to show up? It's either going to show up in your workplace or it's going to show up in your home. And someone is going to be affected by the fact that you cannot manage and control your emotions. Or maybe you're great at managing and controlling yourself at work. But then what happens when you're at home? Are you organized? Like, it does manifest somewhere, people. And I'm just being honest with you. And this is something that we need to face reality of. If you're not focused, if you're not planning, if you're not checking to find out what those wellness benefits are, that's the first thing I check before I get a job. I'm calling HR, you know, and asking what they can do. Is there a union? Because look what's happening with COVID and people that are on the front lines that are passing away. They have a union. Why aren't we standing up and just saying, you know what, like Detrick said, standing up for ourselves and saying, no, I'm stressed. I'm not coming into work today. I can't manage. you need your time off, you should be taking it. That's why you have them. Sick days to me is wellness days. But then again, there should be a policy somewhere that you can differentiate between the two if you need it. Because the reality is, if you have children, you're going to be taking that time off, right? For your children. What about the time you need for yourself? So we can just get out of that, but I just want you to think, because the self-reflection piece to me is very important. And I find because we've been running so much, we're not taking the time to sit with ourselves and pay attention to our thoughts. Because you know what? Those thoughts give you messages. And it depends on your Afrocentric and your indigenous beliefs. Because some people, according to psychiatry, where I've worked for many years, if you're hearing voices, you're going to be committed. But culturally, when we hear voices, this is the information from our ancestors. And also what Detrick was saying, that's your intuition, your God voice telling you and giving you guidance. And we have to start trusting ourselves. And if you know that you're in a workspace that is not healthy for you, let's start making some decisions. There's so many of us out there that are in the same situation. You're not alone. So if we can get out of this slide there, I do have one more slide. And in terms of, yeah, you just go right back out. And then, yes, this is a thing that I wanted to talk about, which is our emotional wellness. And when I said paying attention to that God voice, paying attention to our inner voice and what our ancestors may be saying, you have to sit in silence. You can have a little bit of music on, but I want you to be able to pay attention to your thoughts, because your emotional wellness and your emotional, they call it your emotional quotient, but I call it your emotional IQ. It's your understanding of being able to regulate and understand your emotions and how to regulate yourself when you're at work. And also for you to be able to pay attention to the climate that is going on in your environment, whether it's at work, whether it's at home. Because like I said, people's stressors manifest in many different areas. And we have to really be aware of that and pay attention to it so that we can catch these things. And I always say to people that you have to sit with your thoughts so that you can understand the difference between, you know, when I'm stressed and what those stressors are, so that I'm able to deal with it. And also to be able to communicate and express and delegate to someone when, you know what, I think I've had enough and I need my break. So how do you manage your emotions or manage the emotions, leaders, of others when you got to give them their performance appraisal? Like, how are you showing up with them, and how are you role modeling your understanding of their emotions and what they need? And managers are coming into me and they're saying, you know what, I'm stressed. I don't even know what energy I can give to my employees right now, because I have all these responsibilities from the CEOs and the stakeholders. They're demanding certain things, and I just don't have the staff right now to produce those desirable outcomes. So when we go to the right and we click on 3 ways to lead, how are you going to lead in this time? How are you going to lead parents in this time? How are we as counselors and support people that are out there trying to help people get themselves organized, get themselves back on track? To act. And like Detrick said, there's no time to be sitting back now. And like Diana said, we got to start taking charge of things. And this is what I want us to focus on. Accepting your current reality and the state that you are in. We cannot say, oh, I'm going to wait until this goes back. No, we have to start looking at where it is right now. And I say to leaders, what is the current state of your employees' wellness? Review the policies. That's your responsibility. Assess staff productivity. How are they coming to work? How are you showing up? Are you monitoring them? And why I say monitoring, I'm so, it's my accent, but you know what I mean? There's some jobs where you're on the computer for 7 days a week and your boss has a timer and they manage your schedule and they know when you are on and when you're not. And I'm saying to my management staff, is this something that we need to do right now? Should we be managing people's time? In an 8-hour workday, you're at home. You should only be on the laptop maybe for 4 hours, 5 hours. I guess it depends on how you schedule. But how are you planning that? How are you supporting the staff to get the achieved desired outcomes? Are you checking in? Do you have a checklist? Like, what are those tools that you're using to check in with your staff? Compassion. We have to be mindful. One thing is when people are not feeling well, they're looking to their boss. Sometimes they're even afraid to call in sick at work because of the stigma of what that means for us of color when we can't come into work. And I'm all about my sick days. We need them. And how are we managing when we have our own stressors? Are they showing up in other places? This is when we start to sit with ourselves. Leaders, are you being authentic when you're showing up at work? Are you showing up with your true self? Or do you have, your day look and then you have your evening look? And sometimes we do that. Sometimes we just get ourselves ready to be able to shift ourselves, but we don't want to be into the double consciousness anymore. We want to show up as ourselves every time, everywhere in the same space. I'm just giving you an example. You know how many years it took me to feel comfortable wrapping my hair? Because I was caught up in that thing about how I needed to present. I had to show up like a manager. I'm like, that's just who I am. That's a part of me, but that's not all of me. So people get to see me in my authenticity. They know that when they see me walking now, that I am Afrocentric first. They walk the other way. And I'm okay with that because they know. They're not going to ask me how I am. They're not going to do small talk with me because they know what I'm about. And I role model that consistently all the time in all my spaces. And they would say, oh my gosh, there's Alethia with the black talk. But they know. So any February, they run because they know what I'm going to be putting up. I'm going to be putting up powerful statements. Then I get everyone else involved. I get everyone to read a book. I put out a book report. I go full force every day of the year. So how do you show up? And your time and space. Again, we need the breaks. We need to be mentally well. We have a lot going on. We're still in a pandemic. So I ask bosses and I ask management, do you guys get enough breaks? The whole world is reviewing sick time right now. But if you have a government job, you already know that you had those locked in paid sick days. And then you had your other days that you can play with, right? City of Toronto. Those jobs aren't afforded to us anymore. But now those doors are open. So now we're having the opportunity to have benefits. I love what's going on in the US right now with Kamala talking about increasing minimum wage. Come on. This is what we need to do as people. And we need to start fighting and standing up and actually saying no. If I'm not coming into work today, I'm too stressed. I want my boss to say, okay, what can you manage? How can we still maintain productivity and still not have to put in an 8-hour workday? I think that's going to change. And I think we can be the ones to start leading that change. So that's what I want people to take away. For us to be mindful of where we are right now, assess your situation, but let's be realistic with it. If it's not healthy for you, then why? Why are we still there? It's not about the paycheck. I'm telling you, you could, I left my job after 19 years when they told me they didn't care about Black lives. And they got another Black person to tell me that they don't like me. They don't like what I stand for. But look, I'm thriving. Aren't they seeing me on TV? Some of them have even signed up for my webinars. They know how I work. They know how I manage. They know how I lead. So, to me, it wasn't about the paycheck. I can make that at some other time. I just wanted to have the information to share with my people because, guys, I've been in those systems. I've been in places where there's not even anyone else that looks like me. I was the first. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to learn these spaces. I'm going to conquer them so that when I get out of them and people start being worried, people that look like me, I can educate them on what they need to do to keep focused and to lead mindfully and to be authentic with who you are. And if you need some help with that, please reach out to me. Because I think it's time that we start being realistic and start being okay with Black excellence. I've always said we were excellent. We don't need all these new things that are popping up. Graduation coaches. It's the system that needs to change, not us. It's not our system. So that's why I'm saying we got to be realistic when we're in these spaces and figure out how we're going to sink or swim. This is the time now. Let's take lead. Let's act. There's so many people around that are in leadership positions. I want to thank Karlene. She brings so much depth and knowledge to everything that she does. So, you know, there's people in our community that can help us and to help us shine. So I'm just ready to move in that direction. Why not join me? And I did have one more thing I wanted to mention, and it's just about taking care of ourselves at this time. And what are you doing to manage? And people need to know what coping strategies are, because as a culture, as an Indigenous and Afro-Caribbean culture, we relieve our stress in community. We sing, we dance, we go and cook some food. We get a group of people, you know, and then we're great. We shift our thoughts. So that's what we need to do more. I'm not saying you shouldn't go and see somebody. That's great. I think I want to encourage that, but just know who you're going to see. And they have to have an understanding of our culture and how to apply some of the methodologies that we use. And a lot of people say to me, like, what does that mean? But there's so many things and nuances that we do as people and as Indigenous people that through conversation, it's healing. So please. Social. And there's also, I call them distracting techniques, what are short little quick things that you can do to keep yourself occupied until you need to meet with someone. So, you know, we shouldn't be sitting and suffering. There's so many options that we have out there for coping strategies. So think of a physical activity. Think of something that you can do in community. Think of something that you can do to serve others. And then let's be mindful. Let's take some time to sit quietly or with some soft music and just journal. Let's discharge those thoughts, because if we don't, it's going to affect us physiologically and psychologically. And I want us to be able to discharge those things at the end of the day. And for people that want to get a copy of the the strategies, then I could send that out for them if they want. So I'm not sure if anyone has any questions for me, but I'll be more than happy to answer them.
So we're kind of coming down to time because I want to wrap this up as close to our end time as possible. So throw the questions in the chat if we have them. I know that there were some comments coming in already. You can peruse the chat and see if you see something there that you want to speak to quickly for the next 5 minutes or so, and then I'm going to jump in and try to do my presentation in 15 minutes and get everybody done by 30. I'm good at doing that. I'm good at wrapping like that. So we'll see how we can do that. All right. Any questions, anyone?
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, that was an awesome presentation. I want to thank all three of you so much, Detrick, Deanna in her absence, and Alethia, for really joining me today to do this. You know my heart, Alethia. You've been working on me with another project, so you know me well as a leader by now, I think, at least a little bit more. And
Yes,
you know what I stand for. And so, I believe that today was a really, really great session. It was a really good session. I got a lot of great nuggets out there. As I listened to you talk, I made a note to myself to say to you, perhaps we should collaborate for leadership development with some of your people if they need it, because that's what I do with my company. All right, so if there are no questions, what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm not going to put up my presentation because it's giving too much trouble. And I'm going to do what Detrick did. I'm just going to wing it. I'm here today to talk about owning your space in gender inequities and leadership. And why do I want to talk about that? This is something that's so near and dear to my heart because having spent 20 years in corporate Canada, I know just how difficult it can be. Judging from Alethia's discussion a few minutes ago, she knows exactly what it can be like too. It's tough being a woman in a male-dominated world. It's even tougher being a woman of color in a white male-dominated world. And one of the things I quickly realized is that no one is going to give you anything. And I think it was Detrick who said that earlier on, because I made some notes about that. No one is going to give you anything. So you have to take it. And in order to do that, you have to woman up and own your space. Now, there are two incidents that I experienced in 2020, and they really gave me pause. They made me think. And one of them made me cringe with concern for the plight of women in leadership. And I know things are changing, but it made me think that with all the changes that were happening around us, there are some things which just never seem to change. So the first incident I'm talking about is I initiated a customer feedback survey for my business late last year. I just wanted to get an idea of how people felt about the service they received and their interactions with my KMI brand and how I could improve the offerings for 2021. Now, not surprisingly, because I believe in my own product, not surprisingly, 98% of the responses gave me 5 stars, but there was one out of the bunch of them that stood out for me. It was a young lady who, she admitted that service was exceptional, and that was her words, not mine. But she felt that I was dropping the ball by telling everyone that they have leadership potential. And her suggestion was that instead of telling people they have leadership potential, I should just encourage people to become their best self. Now, with someone who owns a leadership consulting business, I know that you can understand why that stood out for me and why it's a concern for me. It's a concern for me that, she interacted with my business throughout the year, and throughout that whole time, I was never able to change her mind to have her look at herself as a leader. And what concerned me even more was that she dissociated her best self from leadership. And it surprised me, and it doesn't, because many of us who are from colonized nations, we have an aversion, a natural aversion to leadership. We have this false humility that informs transgenerational feelings of inferiority in some of us from post-slavery trauma. Now, these feelings of inferiority, it causes some people to believe that they can never aspire to certain positions in life. And this is further exacerbated by the lack of Black female representation in leadership and senior leadership positions in general, right? And in certain types of careers like the sciences. So when I read her answer on that feedback form, I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. Number one, here we are, we're fighting for the cause. We're seeing so many changes happening in the environment, but here she is still with that mindset. So, I saw her as a lost sheep. And as the person that I am, I said to myself, how on earth can I reach this person? How can this shepherd go out and reach that sheep and bring them back into the fold? We were all created with the ability to lead, but somewhere throughout history, that knowledge got lost. I know the challenge that people like me and Alethia and Detrick and, you know, you guys who are in the forum right now who are leaders, it doesn't have to be in a corporation. You could be a leader in your community and you're a leader in your own home. But we who are in these positions who have a better understanding of what it takes, that's the challenge that we now have, is to help people unlearn the lies that we've been taught about ourselves, not just as Black people, but as humans, and relearn the truth that will make us free to tap into and unlock that greatness that's trapped within us. And not only just to tap into it, but to use it authoritatively to institute lasting change. That's the only way that we're going to shift the narrative of our stories. And until we embrace that part of us and grow in self-awareness, our self-perception will hinder us from becoming what and who we need to become. Now, I stop sometimes, and I don't know if you ever have, but I stop and I think that maybe there's no representation for Blacks in certain fields or positions, not only because of racial discrimination or gender inequities, not necessarily always because of the system. But the question I'm asking is, have we developed ourselves enough to change the narrative? Have we developed ourselves enough to step into those spaces? Because if the perception of self is small, then our lived experiences will also be small, right? There is a verse of scripture, like Detrick, I'm a Christian, so there's a verse of scripture that says, you receive what you believe. And so it depends on how you're thinking and what you're thinking, right? That is going to inform and instruct how you navigate your world. And I'm trying to find the most salient points here so that, you know, I'm sticking within the time frame. So I wrote in my latest book, Self-Perception in Gender Inequities and Career Advancement for Minority Women, that's available on Amazon, that the barriers that minority women face are numerous. So it will take a strong-willed person with the right skills and competencies to overcome them and become valuable enough to move into a position of authority. Now, for me, here are some of the things that, you know, I emphasize so much when I talk to people. Your level of influence is determined by how you see yourself. Your level of authority is fueled by your confidence, and your effectiveness depends on respect, both given and received. I believe it was either Detrick or Diana that talked about respect before. Each of you who spoke before me touched something that I put in this presentation today. Yes, Detrick, a lack of confidence impacts self-perception every day. Absolutely. So before we can be taken seriously and seen as worthy to be entrusted, not to be seen as worthy, period, but to be worthy to be entrusted with greater responsibility, you must create the attitude to own your space. There are enough hurdles for us to overcome as Black women without us setting some, you know, some self-imposed ones. We don't need to be doing that right now. And this brings me to the second incident, 2020, the year of the global awakening to racial and gender inequities, and sometimes the irreparable damage that these can cause. I put that there as the preface because, you know, I'm still in a whoa situation with this one. I got an invitation from an individual to come for a business meeting. They wanted to discuss some entrepreneurial ideas with me to see if I would be interested in either investing or in, you know, working with them to help them turn some of these businesses around. Now we're having this conversation, business conversation going on. In the middle of the conversation, the individual just slips this in nonchalantly and says, I'm going to kiss you on the lips in a few minutes, and then continue the conversation like nothing. Like this was just normal conversation. So I had to say, wait a minute, back up. What did you just say? He says, I'm going to kiss you on the lips because I want to bond with you. And I said, no, you're not going to kiss me on the lips because I bond through conversation, not through kissing. And I'm not going to kiss you because this is supposed to be a professional meeting. Now, I don't want to bore you with the details, but suffice it to say, the individual, realizing that I'm not going to back down from this, he grabbed me by the hands and leaned in to try to kiss me on the cheek instead. Well, if I can't kiss you on the lips, then I must be able to kiss you on the cheeks. And I said, whoa, buddy, back it up. Over my dead body, you're putting your mouth on me. All right. So why am I bringing this story up? In the face of Me Too, in the face of George Floyd happening, we're still talking about this. Bill Cosby, Jeffrey Epstein, Harvey Weinstein, and here I am having my own experience right here in Toronto. You can work with me, you can become a partner with me, but only if you kiss me. And to show you that this individual was serious about what he was saying, the moment he realized that it's not going to happen, he says, okay, this meeting is over. So the meeting was done. And I said, you know, I drove away, I left. And by the time I got home and checked my emails, there was an email in my inbox from this individual saying, I've reconsidered and I decided that I no longer want to work with you. And so let me tell you something. After that incident, before I even left the scene, here is what this person said to me. He said, you know, you're just letting off too many pheromones that's causing people to be attracted to you. So now it's also my fault that he's attracted to me and wants to kiss me because there's no responsibility on his part whatsoever. Now, I hope you guys are following the story and you're seeing the things that women are facing out there in the world every single day, right? The Weinsteins and the Epsteins, and they're doing these things, and it's a very subtle thing. Harvey Weinstein was said to, what's the problem? It's not like you're doing anything, you're just watching. He is the one doing the stuff, but then it's the effect that it has on you. You understand? It was such a horrendous experience that it took days, maybe weeks for it to be flushed out of my system. And the more I tried to work against, this person kept sending me emails berating me on top of it all because he couldn't have his way with me. And so when he realized, when I started to assert myself and stand up to him, he called me an angry woman. Now he omitted the black woman, the black out of that, because normally it's the angry black woman. And the reason why he did that is because I already called him out on racism from some comments he made about George Floyd's death. So why am I sharing this story? You know, why am I sharing this story at all? It's that it was October 2020, for goodness sakes. October 2020, we're not talking about 1920. It's October 2020. Thank you guys, I'm seeing your comments. I appreciate the concern. I'm okay now because I've dealt with him, put him out of my space completely. And you know, it's the subtlety with which this thing happened left me reeling. And for days I struggled because I just couldn't understand. It took a while. I knew what happened. You know what happened. And you know that this is a classic case of sexual harassment, but you're sitting there going, did this really happen? Because you're not expecting this to happen in this day and time. And I'm definitely not expecting it to happen with the person that it happened with. So it just goes to show you, you just have to be so aware when you're out there. So, you know, I'm emphasizing this point so much because if we remember the first incident, I just want to say, it's going to take more than just being your best self in order to own your space in leadership, in gender inequities, in any walk of life that you go in. I am my best self, I believe so. Every day I'm becoming more of my best self. I'm my best self, but I still had to deal with that. And it was so subtle that, you know, had I just for one moment hesitated, it could have gone a different way. So a positive self-perception is the key to help you to respond rightly when they call you angry and aggressive, because that's another word they love to call Black women, aggressive. They don't know the difference between assertive and aggressive. And so they call you angry and they call you aggressive. So how you see yourself will help you to challenge the narrative that you're not qualified when you're overqualified. Positive self-perception will give you the confidence to challenge the gap in compensation with your male peers when you're doing twice the amount of work. The closed doors are not always there to keep you out. I want you to remember that if you don't remember anything today. Closed doors are not always there to keep you out. They're sometimes there to see how much you want it and if you're willing to step up and step out to get it, right? So lack of representation sometimes doesn't always end with the system. It starts with us and how much we're willing to push back on the system. You understand, right? A weak narrative coupled with self-doubt isn't going to cut it in this system. It takes strength, grit, determination to go after what you want. And you're going to need courage, intelligence, tact, and diplomacy to rise above the systemic racial and gender-based hurdles to influence your world with your unique style and brand of leadership. So when you own your space, you tell the world that you know yourself. Someone mentioned identity before. I think it was Diana in her presentation. You tell the world that you know yourself, you know your worth, you know that you belong, and you intend to shine whether they like it or not. When you fail to do that, you give them permission to treat you as less than, to overlook you, and to make you feel like you don't matter and that your opinions aren't valuable. So what does owning your space mean? It's about how you show up. You walk into a room or a gathering or a meeting or whatever it is, and you walk in with confidence and attitude, not a bad attitude. You can walk in, I walk in with attitude all the time and I don't say a word and I send people into confusion. It's a very subtle strength that emanates from self-knowledge, healthy and solid identity formation, and understanding your unique individuality. You know, I just said it. I walk into a room and sometimes people, they look at me because I walk in, I'm very quiet. I don't naturally just announce myself when I walk in. My presence does the talking for me. So I don't say a word and I'll go in and I'll sit, especially if it's a big group. And some people usually look at that as me being shy or reserved. Some of them actually think I'm a pushover, so they try to push buttons. And so when they push, what comes out frightens them so much that they run in the other direction. And it's not that I'm rude. It's what comes out, the quality of what comes out in response to what they're putting out. It sends them running in the other direction. I'm a very, very diplomatic person, and I know how to say exactly what I need to say when I need to say it. So now they have to proceed with caution and respect if they want to step into my space, right? And so with this person who was doing that, he knows now that if he comes back at me, he is going to find a brick wall, because I will guarantee that he thought I was a pushover, and that's why he thought he could do what he could do. But then he met me, he really met me in that moment. So the challenge comes when you don't know yourself, when you don't understand your potential, and you won't accept yourself enough to tap into that potential. And it continues when you don't believe you have what it takes to be a leader, like this young lady, or you're not enough or worthy to sit at the table. Now listen, somebody said it before. I can't remember if it was Diana. I think it may have been Diana, because she was talking about money. I want to say this: God created you with a gold mine inside of you, but unless you learn to dredge for gold, you can die broke. Write that down. You came with a gold mine inside of you, but if you don't know how to dredge for gold, you're going to die broke. And so everything you need to make your life healthy, to make your life successful, to make your life flourish is already inside of you. You must clearly define yourself, that identity, that uniqueness, that individuality, and tap into those inner hidden gifts that God put inside of you to distribute to humanity. So ask yourself, who is the authentic you? And you hear these questions all the time. And I want to tell people that it's not just a surface thing. You need to dig deep. Who are you? Who's the authentic you? And what are you carrying? Because until that is clear, you will never be able to own your space. You will give the mistaken impression that you have nothing of value to add. You will go unnoticed. People will form negative impressions of you. And what that does is to disempower you and limit your ability to be an influence to others and impact your world. Now, I'm sure that's not the way you really want to live. So what does it mean, or how do you begin to own your space? The first thing I would say is to know your worth. Your confidence and presence, that comes from knowledge that you are worthy as a unique individual and as a leader in whatever realm of leadership you choose to be in. Could be in your house. Wives, your husband does not have a right to talk to you anyhow or treat you anyhow. Own that space. You don't have to be rude about it. You don't have to put him down. You don't have to fight. You just have to show up in the fullness of who you are. But you need to know who that is first. You belong at the table, your opinion matters, and you have badass abilities. Now, if you don't know that, guess what's going to happen? The second part, the second step in owning your space is to never compare yourself to anyone and never compete with anyone. Queens don't do that. Queens sit on their throne and they rule. Whatever you want to do, that's up to you, but I'm owning my domain. Okay? You are unique with your own skills and abilities, and you use them to commensurate to the power that's at work in you. That means another person may have the same skills and abilities, but they will never be able to get the results that you get because you're using your tools in alignment with your uniqueness. So dare to be unique. You operate from that place. That's your place of power where you do everything from. The third thing I want to put out in owning your space is to develop your leadership presence. And how do you do that? You develop your competencies and with leadership training and personal development. There are many of them out there. I have a whole organization where I focus on leadership development, personal development, and leadership training. And the second part of that is to practice using your power stance in situations where you don't yet feel strong enough. Sometimes you may walk into a room and you're feeling a little disconcerted, but the presence and the body language may be able to cover that so nobody will ever know. Okay? You just show up as who you are in full, and and God knows that, hey, I'm not strong enough here, but you know what? I'm gonna sit in this, I'm gonna learn, because there is something in here. Somebody might say something and I can tag on onto that note and say something. But you don't walk in the room and let people know that, hey, I'm here, and whatever it takes, I'm going to be here. I've shown up in all of who I am, and that's going to happen today. Don't hide in the shadows or avoid decision makers. Approach every situation with the knowledge that you belong and you are worthy. And that knowledge will begin to show in a positive way on the outside. All right. So those were my key talking points today. And I just want to say, if anybody is interested, they can join. And because of all of this is how I created my business, Karlene Millwood International, a leadership consulting business. And I have, as a part of that, the KMI Institute, where I do leadership training. And there's my Empowered to Thrive mentorship program. I'm starting up a new session on next week, Tuesday, which is February 23rd. So if anybody is interested and want to learn more, www.karlenemillwood.com/Thrive program. I'll say that again. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'll just put it in here in the chat in case anyone's interested. www.karlenemillwood.com/Thrive program. If you're interested, go there and sign up there. Okay. So what I do in that program, how are we doing for time here? How far? I'm 6 minutes over 3:30. I'm going to try to wrap this up for you in 2 minutes. So where's my note? Where am I in my notes here? Okay. Thrive program. So the Thrive program, number one, what you get from that, it's a proven framework for transformational growth. And it's a simple framework that fast tracks your personal and professional development. Number two, telescopic clarity. It become unstuck. Clarity builds your momentum. You will dive into greater, into your inner greatness by using tools and all the stuff, resources that I have there. I'm sorry, I'm rushing through this. Accountability. What's one of the most important things for us to move forward in life is to have some form of accountability. So you'll have plenty of that in there. Number four, you're with a network of upwardly mobile professionals and leaders, right? And everybody's there to support each other. And the fifth is the inclusiveness and flexibility. So even though we have COVID going on, we still go on and do everything online through e-learning and virtual presentations. All right, so that's where I want to leave you today. Okay, Sandra, I see you gotta go. Thank you so much for showing up. Take care, have a great week, and stay in touch. All right, so that's where I want to leave it today. Does anyone have any questions? I promised I wouldn't keep you too much longer than the time. 3:30 was the end time, is 3:38 according to my clock. Any questions? No questions. That's either good or bad. I'm not sure.
I think it's good.
All
It's
right.
good.
You
You
guys
did
can actually unmute yourself now. And if you have anything that you want to add, please do so. We can do that in the next 2 minutes and then we'll go.
I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to come and speak. You know,
You're very welcome. I'm happy to have you. Hope we'll do this again.
Yes, Alethia and Diana, it was, you know, very informative. And, you know, I see that, you know, great minds think alike. So it was just nice to know that without any prior preparation other than knowing what we were talking about, that everybody was vibing on the same frequency about how we can shift the narrative and just help, you know, get our community together and lift each other up and just be more prepared for dealing with what's going on around us. I mean, you know, the stories is interesting. I guess it's great you saved them for the end, because it was just like, whoa, that was really crazy and shocking. But like you said, you know, it's 2020 and this is still going on. So it, you know, definitely needs to be discussed and mentioned, you know, just so people can learn and grow from it. And when these things happen to them, they don't feel like they're the only one that this is happening to, or they're in the twilight zone. No, we all in the twilight zone. We trying to get up out of there. So yeah, I just like to say, like I said, thank you. I enjoyed this and enjoyed the opportunity to be long-winded and share some tips and chips with everybody.
All right. Next time I'll book a whole hour for you alone. How about that? Okay, guys. Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to let you go. I know that everybody has things to do. So thank you so much. Sorry we ran over a little bit. We were waiting for an extra 10 minutes in the front, so we kind of made it up back at the back. So it's right now 3:40 on the dot. So we got that 10 minutes back and we're going home. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon. Okay.
Bye.
Bye for now.
Have a good day. Thank
You
you so
too.
much.
Okay. Bye-bye.